Welcome back to the Daily Sip at 3:30. I love going rummaging around down to the two museums. Our next story is there. In the vast history of the state of Mississippi, we have had some items, some valuable, some not, that were once presumed lost, due maybe to the ongoing Civil War at the time or to a theft. And this is what we explore: lost items that have been found that are on display at the two Mississippi museums. Catherine, tell me what room we're in here.
So this is, I always forget what we call it. Us collections folks, we call this Zone 4. It's all of the section that talks about the Civil War.
Okay. And you got something very special for us. Not festive, but special.
It could be semi-festive.
I suppose so. This is the return of an item that was hidden during the Civil War.
Correct. So we're going to talk about this little cup here.
Okay.
And it was actually buried by the owners. So it was Mary Kearney, who was the owner of the time, and they owned the Vernon plantation that was in Madison.
Okay.
And so because of fears that their precious items would be taken when invading forces came in, which has happened throughout the ages, they're actually still finding things that the British buried when the Viking invaders were coming over.
Wow.
That'd be fun things to work on.
Yeah.
But they buried one of their family silver, which included this silver cup.
Yeah.
And it did protect it. And when they were digging it back up after the war, they actually hit it with a spade.
Oh, wow.
So there's a nice little gash on the side, which you can see if you look closely here on the side that's facing out. But yes, it was saved, and then the family donated it here to the museums in the 70s. Things have been taken both from citizens as well as cultural institutions throughout the ages. And it really wasn't until after World War II that there was international laws formed that invading forces could not take things back with them. And there are still cases now where people will buy things that we call looted, that were looted from archaeological sites in particular, and are made to return it back to the country it belongs to as part of their cultural history.
All right, what else you got for us?
So with this story, we're actually going to talk about a necklace that was taken when Jackson was invaded in 1863 and was returned to us later by the descendants of the gentleman who took it. So we're going to go over here and look at that.
Around the corner. Okay, so pretend we had a war, and then after the war, you're looking for your jewelry, and you search around. So, well, that must have been around here somewhere, and it was around there somewhere, but it disappeared. Tell us about this.
So this is a garnet necklace. It was actually taken from Jackson by a Union soldier named Daniel Jones, who was part of the Company I, 17th Infantry, Iowa. And he went through Jackson on the way to Vicksburg during the siege of Vicksburg, and he actually wrote to his sister, Emily, who he gave the necklace to, about being in Jackson, and before burning all of the buildings that the rebels might use, taking what they wanted. And although he didn't specifically name that he took this necklace, it was actually in the governor's reports that a lot of the ladies lost their jewelry. And this came down through the family of Daniel Jones, his sister, and it was returned to the state in 2010.
2010, wow, that's a long time.
A long time.
Well, they used it a while and then gave it back.
They did. There is an image of the 5th generation of women who actually wore this necklace, and so it passed down the generations. And so we're very lucky because it is gorgeous.
You do have examples of that, though, where people had ancestors during the Civil War that took things, and then later generations returned it.
Exactly.
Was it like taking lava from Hawaii? It's all bad luck, or they just gave it back out of conscience?
I think it's part of both. It passes down the generation, and partially they have no use for it.
Well.
It fell out. It's too fancy for them. They think they're going to hurt it. And yes, conscience of this belongs back with where it was taken from. And so although we don't know the family it came from, it is back in Jackson from where it was taken.
We have here an actual Civil War shirt. It doesn't look like it would be a uniform or anything like that. Katie, you're going to explain this to us.
No, it was not. So, similar to the necklace, but not quite as precious. These were actually made out of the curtains that were in what we now know as the Old Capitol. And so it was a James Davis, who was I think it was the West Virginia Volunteers, was also here going towards the siege of Vicksburg. He was part of Sherman's army, from what I could see from our database. took our curtains from the old Capitol and had one of the Army tailors make this shirt for him. And again, similar to the necklace, his family found it down the years and returned it to the state. And we actually used this pattern to replicate the curtains that are now hanging at the old Capitol. Originally, this would have been blue. Blue and purple in particular, the two dyes that fade extremely fast. And so instead of being blue, it looks green. But if you go to the old Capitol and you find some blue curtains, that's what this is based off of.
Would you have known what the curtains looked like in the old Capitol had it not been for the shirt?
Unlikely, no. I mean, unless they are photographs, which at that time is a little too early, at least for things like scenes like that, or if someone had drawn them, but otherwise, no.
Wow.
We wouldn't have known.
I don't know what he would have done with the shirt. This would not have been the kind of thing you'd have worn into battle, but...
Likely not, no. There was kind of some debates by some clothing experts of, oh, maybe it was a work shirt because of the way that the collar is. I'm like, I don't know. It's partially has silk in it, and it's quite fancy, so I can't really see you wearing this when you're working the fields.
No.
So in my head, it's kind of the... yeah, look what I took type thing, or, you know, like, aren't I fancy type thing. That's what I would think of it as.
Another trophy of war, but it has been returned and it's safely at the museum.
Exactly, yes, it is. And nice here in our collection storage.
This is interesting. Thank you.
You're welcome.